Many people who bought leasehold homes were misled by developers. That's the damning verdict of a report by the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, whose job is to make businesses be fair to consumers. It's a story we've been following for some years now on Moneybox. Our reporter Dan Whitworth is with me for this latest development. Dan, just first though, remind us the difference between leasehold and freehold.
OK, Paul. So someone who owns a property outright, including the land it's built on, is a freeholder. Generally speaking, most houses are freehold, whereas flats tend to be leasehold. But in recent years, that's been shifting with a big increase in the number of houses being sold leasehold. Now, that's where someone only owns the property, someone else owns the land. It costs money to buy the freehold, and leaseholders will usually have to pay extra money for things like ground rent and service charges.
And when we've looked at this before, Dan, those charges have been very high, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. And in fact, this report from the Competition and Markets Authority is a significant moment for many hundreds of thousands of people who own leasehold houses. They've been fighting, lots of them for many years, against what's become known as the leasehold scandal. Now, these leaseholders say they were missold their homes, have been left trapped with ever-increasing ground rents that, in some cases, double every 10 years, and that they were misled about how much it would cost to buy their freeholds. So following this investigation, the CMA has come out strongly in support of those people and agreed with all those points. George Lusty is from the CMA.
We'll be bringing cases arguing that these businesses have broken consumer law, that these escalating ground rent charges and the mis-selling of homes is illegal. We'll take those cases to court if we need to. We're going to try and attack the behaviour and try and get people's money back where we can. We're going to do everything we can to sort out this problem. It's having a huge impact. Something's gone really badly wrong. The developers in particular seem to have really failed in their responsibility to treat their customers fairly.
Strong stuff, Dan. So who's responsible for this? Who does the CMA say is behind it?
Well, in the main, you just heard from George Lusty there. In the main, the finger of blame for this is being pointed at developers. No names yet from the CMA, but do watch this space. And again, there's no mistaking the language in this report. It's strong, describing leaseholders as not being able to feel secure and happy in their homes, saying it's finding support calls for a change in the law in this area, and that it's ready to take this fight to the courts to force developers to change their ways if so required.
Thanks, Dan. Well, Cath Williams is someone who suffered from this system when she bought her home on an estate in Cheshire. Cath Williams, do you feel you were misled?
Absolutely misled and missold. I bought the house in 2011 and there was no mention of leasehold anywhere in any of the marketing material. Even on the reservation form, when I paid the deposit, which I believe is the point of sale, where I paid the deposit for the property, no mention of leasehold anywhere.
And who do you think was responsible for mis-selling?
The developer, and through their sales staff, who were obviously very well trained in how to coerce people into buying these properties under false pretences.
So you seem to be painting a picture of really being systematically misled by the developers and the people who worked for them.
Absolutely. And I'm so pleased the CMA report supports this. I always knew I was missold, but it's very difficult to prove when everything was verbal at the point of sale. And the first time I knew... Sorry.
So go on.
I'll say the first time I knew that the property was leasehold, it was after I'd paid the £500 deposit, £750 for upgrades. On a sick list, they went through everything with me and then wrote in pencil at the bottom, leasehold, at which point I challenged them and said, hang on a minute. No, I thought I'd bought a freehold property. What's this?
And it was too late by then. Has this cost you money?
It really has, because my lease was onerous. It was £295 a year, which is over the £250 threshold. It was more than 0.1% of the property value. It's 0.3%. So when I came to sell, the estate agent valued the house at £20,000 less than the equivalent freehold market property, and then said, actually, I might not even be able to get anybody through the door. So the only way to sell was to buy the freehold. That cost me £15,000 in total. It
really did cost you money. Well, stay with us, Cath, but listening to that in the studio is Sebastian O'Kelly, Chief Executive of the Leasehold Knowledge Partnership, that campaigns for a better deal for leaseholders. Sebastian O'Kelly, we've seen a lot of reports. Were you expecting this one to be so strong in its findings?
No, I'm absolutely delighted by it. It's a really strong report that puts the blame squarely on our cartel PLC house builders, and they've got a lot of explaining to do, and it's going to cost them some money.
Yes, I mean, very strong language. They've broken consumer law. The CMA will take them to court. Also mentions for the first time of compensation. Who do you think will get that, and how much, how far back?
Well, the people who are missold this will get that. There's an example of how this could work with the court case that was in Cardiff in the summer, where leasehold house owners were missold their properties as leasehold. They got the freehold, they got the ground rent that they had wrongly paid back, and the issue was settled. We want to see something similar for all the thousands of people who are missold these leasehold properties.
How far could it go back?
I don't know. That would be that's rather an issue for the CMA to work out. But we're talking about PLC house builders doing this. They're still trading. They still have reputations to maintain. So I think they will now get a proper compensation arrangement in place.
The house builders are clearly in the frame. What about solicitors? Because we've already had two emails saying, what about the solicitors who allowed customers to sign these unfair contracts?
Well, the solicitors have been revealed to be nothing more than just stooges for the developers. In many cases, they haven't handed this out. It's also a huge question mark over whether developers should recommend solicitors in the first place. Developers have been saying all along that, it's the fault of solicitors for not identifying the tricks that they put in the leases in the first place. These are toxic leases now in the property market that will be transacted. PLC house builders need to get rid of them and put them right.
Yes, it certainly sounds as if the CMA agrees with you on that. So, Cath Williams, encouraging news, do you think? What do you think you were owed? What would you think was fair compensation for what you've been through?
Well, at the point of sale, when I did question if I could buy the freehold, I was told I could buy it by law 2 years down the line for £2,000 to £3,000. I would have been happy to pay that at the point of sale, to be honest. So I don't mind paying that. I'm not asking for a free house. By the way, leasehold means you don't own the house either, as well, or the land. So I'd like that, the 15 grand back minus the £2,000-3,000 that the freehold would have cost me at the point of sale.
So quite a reasonable demand. You just want to be put in the position you kind of thought you were at the start.
Absolutely.
So, Sebastian, is it going after entirely the developers, the house builders? Are those the people the CMA has in its frame, or is it those solicitors you mentioned, or indeed the firms that buy up freeholds? We've talked about this before on the programme and put up the charges.
Well, that is also addressed in the CMA report. I mean, loads of these freeholds have been sold off to private equity speculators in ground rents, usually based offshore, and they have ratcheted up these costs. I mean, I've just come across a case this week, £15,000 to vary the lease from, because it happens to be a buy-to-let investor. It's ridiculous. This.
So we have heard from the Law Commission, those are very hard things to undo. You may think it was unfair. Do you think the Competition and Market Authority can do that?
I think it'll be more difficult to address those administrative charges, but it's the PLC house builders are the easier target here, and really the people primarily culpable.
And in a word, how important is this report?
It's excellent because, as well as putting right the issues that have gone wrong, it's a huge impetus for government to reform leasehold and to set new ground rents to zero, which they promised for 3 years and still haven't done.
Sebastian O'Kelly and Cath Williams, thanks. And I should say this applies to England and Wales. The situation is different in Scotland and Northern Ireland.